3 days before my wedding, I got a phone call from a blocked number. "Don't marry Lauren. She's not who you think she is." I laughed, hung up, thought it was a prank. But it wasn't. That call didn't just ruin my wedding, it saved my life. 2 weeks before the wedding, everything was exactly how it should have been. The venue was paid in full, a converted barn outside Asheville with string lights, whiskey barrels for cocktail tables, and an open bar that was costing me more than my first car. The rings were engraved, her Pinterest board had been mined, sorted, and executed down to the napkin font. Everyone kept saying how lucky I was, how sweet Lauren was, how perfect we were together. And I believed them. I wasn't just in love, I was sure enough to commit to forever, sure enough to shut down that little voice in the back of my head whispering, "Something's off, don't ask what." Lauren Avery, 30, nonprofit coordinator, golden retriever energy with a killer smile, had that effect. She was the kind of woman strangers smiled at on the street. She brought snacks to meetings, she wrote handwritten thank you notes. She had a laugh that made you feel like the funniest person alive. We met at a fundraiser. She was organizing silent auction baskets. I was covering the event for my firm's client. She asked me for help stapling bid sheets and accidentally stapled her sleeve to the table. I still have the photo. She looks stunned and delighted, like she's in the middle of discovering she's the main character in a rom-com. That was Lauren. Charming chaos. In the year and a half we'd been together, she'd never once raised her voice, never ghosted, never bailed. We had our rituals, Thai food Fridays, our shared Spotify playlist, an unhealthy obsession with terrible true crime documentaries. I'd never felt more seen, which made the unease feel wrong. It was small at first, a skipped phone call here, a bad connection excuse there. A night she said she was working late, but didn't send her usual home safe text. I told myself it was nothing. I'd been overthinking lately. Pre-wedding nerves. A therapist I saw once called it anticipatory grief, that weird fear that kicks in when something finally feels good enough to lose. So I ignored the blips. Like the time I picked up her phone to order pizza, and a message preview popped up from a contact named Jules. "Miss you already." "Who's Jules?" I asked, handing the phone over casually. She didn't miss a beat. "One of my donors. Older guy. Harmless. Loves to overshare." She laughed, rolled her eyes, and kissed my cheek. "You're cute when you're jealous." I laughed too, because the idea of Lauren lying felt like accusing a Labrador of tax fraud. She was warm. She was honest. She was safe. Then came the work trip. It was last minute, a weekend conference in Charleston. She apologized for the timing, but promised to FaceTime every night. "I'll bring you that bourbon you like," she said, and I kissed her goodbye in the driveway. She sent one selfie from her hotel room. No makeup, hair tied up, wine in hand. I told her she looked beautiful. She said she missed me. That night, I slept like a rock. But the next morning, something felt muted. She didn't respond to my good morning text until almost 11 a.m. Said she'd been in a session. Later, when we FaceTimed, I saw movement in the reflection behind her, a shadow crossing behind the hotel curtains. I asked about it. She laughed. "Probably a housekeeper. Relax, detective." I didn't push, because love means trust, and I trusted her. I loved Lauren like I'd never loved anyone. She made me want to be better, not because she asked, but because she believed I already was. So when she asked me to write my vows early, just so I can plan the ceremony flow, I did. They were raw, real. I talked about the first time I saw her barefoot in the kitchen, swaying to Billie Holiday while making grilled cheese. I promised to show up every day, even when life got messy. I wrote, "You're the only thing in this world that makes me believe timing isn't a cruel joke." She cried when she read them, said no one had ever made her feel that understood. I should have felt everything clicking into place, But that voice, the one I kept silencing, was getting louder. I couldn't name what felt wrong, just that something did. And then came the call. It happened on a Wednesday. I was at the office, halfway through editing a pitch deck, sipping lukewarm coffee and waiting for a client to respond to a vague email I'd sent hours earlier. Just noise, just another workday. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go. I usually do. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail. That's my rule. But something in me reached for it. I can't explain why. I just did. Hello? Silence. Then a woman's voice. Low, calm, filtered almost, like she was using some kind of app to muffle her identity. Ethan Blake? I froze. Yeah? Who is this? She didn't answer my question. Her tone was steady, controlled, like she'd rehearsed this. You can't marry Lauren. My stomach dropped. Excuse me? You can't marry Lauren Avery. She's not who you think she is. That sentence hit me like ice water down my spine. I laughed, a nervous, involuntary reaction. Okay, is this a joke? I said, glancing around the office. No one was paying attention. But she kept talking, unshaken. She's been seeing someone else. His name is Jordan, works with her. They've been meeting at the Hotel Indigo on Biltmore once or twice a month, sometimes under her name, sometimes under his. You can check. I couldn't breathe. She tells him you're just a placeholder, that you're stable, good on paper, but that he's the one she really wants. My mouth was dry. I stood up slowly, walked to the far end of the hallway near the emergency exit, just to be alone with whatever this was. Who are you? I asked again. I'm not calling to ruin your life, she said. I'm calling to stop you from walking into a lie. Do whatever you want with this, but check the dates. Look at her phone if you have to. And then, click. Just like that, she was gone. I stood there, phone still to my ear, listening to silence. The hallway suddenly felt 10 degrees colder. My first instinct was to laugh it off. Some jealous ex, a prank, maybe someone from Lauren's past trying to sabotage her out of spite. I even tried to picture the kind of woman who would do this. Bitter, maybe, or unstable. But then I remembered something. Hotel Indigo. Lauren had mentioned it before. Not directly, just in passing, a comment about grabbing drinks with a donor after work. I remember asking, "That's the place by the square, right?" And she'd blinked, like she hadn't expected me to recognize it. My heart was thudding. I pulled up my credit card statement, scrolled. Nothing. But of course, if the rooms weren't under her name. I opened her Instagram, searched for posts from the nights the voice mentioned. Nothing suspicious, but Lauren was good at curated reality. I wanted to forget the call, to file it under weird and irrelevant. But the voice, whoever she was specific. She knew names, dates, places. Too specific to be random. I didn't say anything to Lauren that night. When she walked through the door, all bright eyes and Trader Joe's bags, she looked so normal, like someone who couldn't possibly be hiding anything. She kissed me on the cheek, talked about the new project at her nonprofit, asked what I wanted for dinner, and I smiled, I nodded, I listened. But inside, my stomach was a knot of suspicion and dread. I replayed every little inconsistency I'd ever brushed off, the late meetings, the phone always face down, the forgotten weekend plans. I told myself it was just fear, that I didn't want to become one of those guys who snoops, who spies, who reads private messages in the dark. But I also couldn't sleep. At 2:47 a.m., I sat on the floor of our bathroom, phone in hand, staring at Lauren's contact, thumb hovering over the message icon. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just sat there thinking, what if she's not who I think she is? And even worse, what if I already knew that and just didn't want to admit it? I didn't tell anyone about the call. Not my brother, not my best friend, not my mom, God, especially not my mom. Because if I said it out loud, it would be real. And I wasn't ready for that yet. I needed to believe it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, a last-minute twist that would resolve itself into happily ever after.
The morning after the call, I woke up with a weight on my chest I couldn't name. Lauren was already in the kitchen making coffee, humming to herself like nothing in the world had changed. I stood in the doorway, watching her pour almond milk into 2 mugs, smiling like she belonged there, like we hadn't just crossed some invisible threshold the night before. I smiled back, took the mug, said thanks like everything was fine, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't looking at her the same way anymore. I was studying her, watching for the cracks. That day, during lunch at work, I opened our shared Google Calendar. I started cross-referencing her past work events with the dates the anonymous caller mentioned, one by one. No accusations, just curiosity. Most of them matched harmless meetings, but one jumped out, a team-building workshop in Winston-Salem, the same weekend she'd sent me that grainy hotel selfie. I searched the hotel name she'd said she was staying at. It wasn't Hotel Indigo. It was a DoubleTree. But the wallpaper in her photo didn't match either. I checked their Instagram geotag for that weekend. Nothing. Just doubt. That night, I waited for her to fall asleep before grabbing her purse. She'd left it in the hall. I felt like a criminal. Hands shaking, heart pounding in my ears. But I did it anyway. At the bottom, under a pile of folded receipts and half-used lip balm tubes, I found a folded hotel receipt. Not for a DoubleTree. Not for Winston-Salem. It was from Hotel Indigo. 2 nights. 1 king bed. The name on the bill wasn't hers. It was a man's. Jordan C. I took a photo, put everything back exactly the way it was. I stared at that photo until 3 a.m. The next morning, I casually asked her how the Winston-Salem retreat had gone. She blinked, smiled, said it was exhausting but worth it. I nodded like I believed her, like I wasn't holding the proof in my pocket. That evening, while she was on the phone in the bedroom, I sat at my desk pretending to work and opened her Instagram. I scrolled back months. I wasn't looking at what she posted. I was looking at the gaps. The weekends she didn't post. The ones where her captions were vague. Unplugged this weekend. Self-care time. Needed this reset. Every one of them lined up with another hotel charge or an unexplained trip. She'd left breadcrumbs. I just hadn't wanted to follow them. I logged on to our Verizon account and looked at the call history. It took 20 minutes to figure out the password, but when I got in, I saw the pattern. 1 number, repeated dozens of times. Calls during lunch. Calls late at night. Calls when she said she was journaling or doing yoga in the guest room. I dialed it from my work phone. It went straight to voicemail. A man's voice. Smooth, warm, confident. "Hey, it's Jordan. Leave it." I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, completely still. That weekend, I accidentally opened her laptop while she was in the shower. It was already logged in. I searched her email for Jordan. Dozens of messages. Some professional, most not. The subject lines alone made me nauseous. Missing you. Next weekend? So good last night. I clicked one at random and read the first line. I hate lying to him, but you make it so easy to forget the rest of the world. I closed the laptop, stared at the floor. Everything went quiet. I walked into the bedroom and opened her dresser drawer. Under a pile of old scarves and workout tops, I found it, a second phone. Slim, gold case, no lock, like she hadn't even bothered to hide it properly. My hands were shaking as I powered it on. The screen lit up instantly. The background photo was of a coffee cup with a heart-shaped foam. Innocent. Deceptive. I opened the Messages app and scrolled. It was all there. The pet names, the private jokes, the photos, him in her bed, her in his apartment, conversations that overlapped with the days she had texted me, "I love you so much." I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, heart in free fall. The evidence was undeniable. Lauren had been cheating. Not a one-time slip, not a drunken mistake, a relationship, an alternate life she'd been living for over a year, parallel to the one we were building. A double exposure. One of them fake. And all I could think was, I knew something was off. I felt stupid, violated, like my entire reality had been written by someone else and I was just reading the script in real time. But underneath the heartbreak, there was something else. A strange, guilty kind of relief. Because now the unease had a name. Now the gaslight had a source. Now the voice in my head could stop asking, what if you're just being paranoid? I wasn't paranoid. I was right. I didn't know what to do next. I just sat in the dark, that second phone glowing in my hand like a truth I couldn't unsee.
The morning light in our bedroom was soft and golden, like it had no idea the world was about to split in two. Lauren was still half asleep, tangled in the duvet, her hair spread across the pillow like every other morning I'd loved her. I watched her for a long moment, feeling both heartbreak and a cold clarity that almost felt like steel in my chest. I wasn't going to wait. I wasn't going to spend one more day pretending I didn't know the truth. "Lauren?" I said quietly. My voice was calm, flat. She stirred, blinked up at me, and smiled like nothing had changed. "Hey, you're up early," she mumbled. I didn't smile back. "Who's Jordan?" She froze. The air between us tightened like a wire pulled too far. "What?" she asked, trying to laugh, but her voice had that sharp edge people get when they're cornered. "Jordan," I repeated. "The man you've been meeting at Hotel Indigo. The man you've been calling when you say you're working late. The man you've been sleeping with for over a year." Her smile vanished completely. For a second, she just stared at me, calculating, like her brain was rifling through every excuse she'd ever prepared. Then she shook her head slowly. "Ethan, you're being paranoid. I don't know what you think you saw, but don't," I cut her off, my voice low but firm, "don't do that. Don't gaslight me. I have the hotel receipt, I have the call logs, I have the emails, and I found the second phone." Her face drained of color, as if someone had pulled the plug on the performance. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No words, no more lies, just the heavy, damning silence of someone caught. She started, then stopped. Finally, she whispered, "Okay. Yes." There was no apology, no burst of tears, No desperate plea for forgiveness, just surrender. Not because she was sorry, but because there was nowhere left to run. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded, almost to myself. The wedding's off. Her eyes widened slightly, like maybe she thought I'd hesitate. "Ethan, no," I said, standing up. "There's nothing else to say. I can't marry someone who's been lying to me this whole time. I can't marry someone who made me feel crazy for trusting my gut." She didn't follow me as I left the room. She didn't reach for me. I think we both knew it was over. That day, I called the venue, canceled everything, paid the penalty fees, called the tuck shop and told them to restock my suit, called the airline and canceled the honeymoon to Maui we'd been dreaming about for months. Watching the bookings disappear from my email felt surreal, like erasing an entire life I'd been building in my head. Then came the harder part, telling my family. My mom cried on the phone, first from shock, then from relief. "Oh, honey," she said, "I always thought something felt off." My brother swore loudly and offered to drive over with a baseball bat, which I declined. Explaining to mutual friends was worse. Some of them didn't believe me right away. A few tried to suggest maybe we could work it out. I could feel the pity in every text, every carefully worded "we're here for you." The first week after the breakup was a blur. I moved into my brother's spare room for a while because I couldn't stand being in that house full of her perfume and lies. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, playing every memory on a loop, wondering how much of it was real. I'd cycle through grief, then rage, then humiliation. It became my new heartbeat. But under all of it, there was a strange, quiet sense of relief. The anonymous caller, the receipts, the second phone, the confrontation. As brutal as it was, it had saved me. Saved me from years of lies, from a marriage that would have been built on rot. I didn't feel lucky yet, but I knew, deep down, that someday I would. I never found out who made the call. Not a clue. No follow-up, no text, no "you're welcome" from some hidden number. Just that single, life-altering voice dropping a truth bomb and disappearing like a ghost. And yet, I think about her, whoever she was, almost every day. A stranger's courage saved me years of heartbreak, years of living a lie I would have defended to my last breath. She didn't just ruin a wedding, she handed me back my life. In the first few months, I was just surviving. Therapy helped. So did moving out of the house we'd shared and into a small apartment downtown with blank walls and no history. I bought a notebook and started journaling every night, mostly half-coherent ramblings at first, anger, questions, what-ifs. But it became a ritual, a place to put the weight I'd been carrying in my chest for so long. The first sentence I ever wrote was, "When something feels off, it probably is." It sounds simple, but I'd spent years training myself to override that voice. The little instincts, the subtle shifts in energy, the way a shadow passes across someone's face when they lie. I used to think love meant always giving the benefit of the doubt, forgiving the unexplained, making yourself smaller to keep the peace. I don't believe that anymore. Love without honesty is just theater. Slowly, I began to reclaim the parts of me I'd shelved during that relationship. I started cooking again, not just reheating takeout. I went running on the trails near the French Broad River. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted from because Lauren wasn't really into group hangs. I let myself remember who I was before the gaslight, before the constant second-guessing. By the time a year had passed, I wasn't fully healed, but I wasn't broken anymore either. I took a solo trip into the Blue Ridge Mountains, something I'd always said I'd do, but never had. The air was cool and clean, pine-scented and quiet in the way that makes your thoughts echo. I hiked up to a ridge with a sweeping view of the valley and just sat there, letting the weight of that old life push further and further away. That's when I met her, Emily. She was hiking solo too, carrying an oversized pack and wearing a baseball cap with her hair in a messy braid. She stopped to ask if I could take a photo of her with the mountains behind her. I said yes. We ended up talking for an hour about nothing and everything. Bad weather, good coffee, our mutual inability to fold maps correctly. She wasn't perfect, she didn't try to be. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to be perfect either. I don't know what will come of it. I'm not sprinting toward forever anymore. But I'm walking forward, steady, listening to my gut. And every once in a while, when the sun is warm on my face and I feel truly free, I think about that voice on the other end of the line, the stranger who saved me with 8 words. Don't marry Lauren. She's not who you think she is. I whisper a thank you to the wind, and I keep walking. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe to Open Secret Stories. We share true stories every day about love, betrayal, and the unexpected twists life throws at us. Hit the like button if this story resonated with you, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the next jaw-dropping story.